73% of Americans drink coffee every day, and it's not very surprising to know that most of that coffee comes from Starbucks. But what if I told you that behind those cozy cafes and familiar green logos lies a history of exploitation, discrimination, and corporate greed that they've worked hard to keep hidden? From tax evasion to spying on their employees, racial scandals, and environmental criticism, Starbucks has brewed more than just coffee over the years. But how did a small coffee equipment store turn into one of the biggest coffee companies ever? Let's go back to 1971. Seattle, Washington. Jerry Baldwin, Zeb Siegel, and Gordon Bowker opened a small store selling high-quality coffee beans and equipment after being inspired by Alfred P. At the time, Starbucks was only selling coffee beans, but this changed after Howard Schultz, an American businessman, entered the picture. Howard had a different vision for Starbucks. He wanted it to be a community hub where people could kick back and relax. So after a trip to Italy, Howard was attracted by the cafe culture and pushed the idea of turning Starbucks into an espresso bar. But the founders were skeptical of this idea, so Howard left Starbucks and opened his coffee shop, Il Giornale. Fast forward to 1987 when Schultz bought Starbucks, merged it with Il Giornale, and transformed it into the Starbucks we know today, selling not just coffee, but an experience. Cozy interiors, friendly baristas, and that iconic green mermaid logo. The company expanded rapidly, going international in 1996, starting with Tokyo. By the early 2000s, Starbucks was everywhere. The idea of grabbing a Starbucks cup became less about the coffee and more about the lifestyle. But behind all those frappuccinos and lattes, Starbucks was waiting for some inevitable controversies. 1. Underfilling lattes. In 2016, Starbucks faced a lawsuit from 2 customers in California who claimed that the chain had some kind of systematic conspiracy that underfilled the lattes by 25%, and the company had saved countless millions of dollars by serving less coffee to the customers. However, this was one of the very straightforward and less challenging lawsuits faced by the company because the company was even accused of harming farmers' finances. Starbucks is in court for underfilling its overpriced lattes too. Ethiopian coffee farmers. The British NGO Oxfam accused Starbucks in October 2006 of breaking fair trade agreements and causing financial harm to Ethiopian coffee farmers. In particular, Oxfam claimed that by preventing the Ethiopian government from trademarking several of its domestic coffee beans, Starbucks was denying Ethiopian farmers $88 million annually. In response to the allegations, Starbucks said Oxfam's statements were false and expressed their wish for the organization to cease misleading the public. Recognizing the value and purity of Ethiopia's specialty coffee names, Starbucks and the Ethiopian government struck a license, distribution, and marketing deal in May 2007. These programs gave producers a larger portion of the retail price and helped farmers make more money from their coffee brands. Starbucks costing coffee farmers millions, Oxfam claims. Business and Human Rights Resource Center. While Starbucks was trying to settle this situation, another crisis was being brought up behind the scenes. Third, tax avoidance scandals. 2012. Starbucks faced massive backlash in the UK when reports revealed they had paid almost no corporate taxes for years. Between 2009 and 2012, the company made around £3 billion in sales, but paid only £8.6 million in taxes. How? They claimed they weren't making a profit despite telling investors they were thriving. But the thing was, Starbucks had paid £8.6 million in taxes not only between 2009 and 2012, but in 14 years. Investigations revealed Starbucks was shifting money to other countries, like the Netherlands, where taxes were lower. This lets them legally avoid paying much in the UK. All the money generated from other countries was shifted to one account in the Netherlands, where the lesser tax rate was deducted and the money was then used. This gave Starbucks a way to avoid giving too much tax and keep much of the profit. People were furious, calling it unfair that small businesses had to pay their taxes while a giant corporation that was making 1,000,000 times more money found ways around it. After protests and public outrage, Starbucks eventually agreed to pay more tax voluntarily, but the damage to its reputation was already done. But if you think this was crazy, wait until you hear what Starbucks did to these men. 4. Philadelphia arrests. On 12 April 2018, Dante Robinson and Rashawn Nelson, Starbucks closed 8,000 stores across the United States for a whole day to hold racial bias training for 175,000 employees. The CEO, Kevin Johnson. 5. Same-sex marriage scandal. In 2012, a Starbucks executive put out a statement claiming that the company supported the legalization of same-sex marriage, and the National Organization for Marriage strongly disagreed, and the statement resulted in a boycott from the organization, as they received 22,000 signatures in favor of their boycott. Starbucks CEO holds his ground on gay marriage. The boycott was strengthened even further after Starbucks was accused of child labor, and that's when things went downhill really fast. 6th, child labor allegations. In 2020, an investigation found children under 13 working long hours on coffee farms in Guatemala that supply beans to Starbucks. These kids worked about 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, and earned very little money. Similar reports later came out about farms in China's Yunnan province, where child workers picked coffee beans under poor conditions and were paid based on how much they collected. In 2024, a consumer group even sued Starbucks, claiming they lied about having 100% ethical coffee while child labor was still happening on some farms in Brazil, Guatemala, and Kenya. Starbucks denies the accusations, saying they don't allow child labor and that they check their suppliers to make sure everything is done properly. They also use a program called CAFE practices to ensure ethical sourcing, but critics argue that some farms still slip through the cracks. Even with Starbucks' promises, the scandal has left many people wondering how much they can trust the company's claims about ethical coffee. 7. Employing refugees. In January 2017, Donald Trump signed an executive order that suspended the entry of Syrian refugees into the United States, along with 7 other countries, to implement extreme vetting measures. However, Howard Schultz wrote a letter in which he stated that he had decided to develop plans that will give employment opportunities to 10,000 refugees in over 75 countries where Starbucks was doing business. The plan was started in the United States by hiring individuals that has served with the U.S. troops and were of help to the military where needed. In return, Donald Trump's executive order was supporting a Starbucks boycott, with some saying that Starbucks should be giving more help to American veterans instead. Calls for boycott of Starbucks over plans to hire 10,000 refugees over next 5 years. ABC 7 New York. Well, not all controversies have a very good reason, and this next incident is also kind of not too controversial itself, but it was assumed to be. 8. Social issues. 2015/2016. The 2015 Starbucks War on Christmas controversy blew up over something surprisingly simple: a plain red cup. For years, Starbucks released festive holiday cups decorated with snowflakes, reindeer, ornaments, and other traditional winter designs. But in 2015, they stripped all that away, leaving a plain ombre red cup with no decorations at all. Starbucks explained the change, saying they wanted to create a blank canvas for customers to express their own holiday stories, a more neutral, inclusive approach. They also said the design was meant to symbolize warmth and simplicity, but many people saw it differently. Joshua Feuerstein, a Christian evangelist and social media personality, posted a viral Facebook video accusing Starbucks of trying to erase Christmas. He claimed the company was part of a larger cultural shift to remove Christianity from public spaces. In the video, he showed himself ordering coffee and telling the barista his name was Merry Christmas, forcing Starbucks employees to write the phrase on his cup. He encouraged his followers to do the same, calling it a way to trick Starbucks into acknowledging Christmas. On the other side, people mocked the outrage, pointing out that Starbucks still sold Christmas-themed drinks like the peppermint mocha and continued to sell holiday gift cards and merchandise with Christmas imagery. Would you take part in a protest led by just an assumption on a colored cup? No. Despite the backlash, the controversy boosted Starbucks' visibility, and the red cups became an unintentional symbol of the ongoing cultural battle over political correctness during the holiday season. However, the cup wars didn't end there. After the red cup controversy in 2015, Starbucks found itself in hot water again in 2016, this time over a green cup. Leading up to the 2016 US presidential election, Starbucks released a limited edition cup featuring a continuous one-line illustration of people from all walks of life, diverse faces, symbols of unity, and humanity connected together. Starbucks said the design was meant to promote togetherness during a time when the country felt more divided than ever. CEO Howard Schultz described it as a symbol of unity in a year filled with political tension. But the message didn't land the way Starbucks hoped. Many customers assumed this was Starbucks' replacement for their traditional holiday cup, even though it wasn't. People were expecting snowflakes, Christmas trees, or at least something festive, and instead they got a cup that looked more like a political statement. Critics quickly labeled it anti-Christmas and accused Starbucks of pushing a liberal agenda. Some saw the cup as another attempt to water down holiday traditions and avoid mentioning Christmas altogether. The backlash spread online, with customers venting on social media and calling for boycotts. Starbucks responded by clarifying that the green cup wasn't a holiday cup at all. It was a separate, special design meant to celebrate community. A few weeks later, they released their actual holiday cup, which featured festive red and white doodles. But by then, the damage was done. 8. Israel support allegations. It all started with rumors that Starbucks and its former CEO, Howard Schultz, were giving money to the Israeli government and military. Starbucks quickly denied this, saying they're a non-political company and don't fund any country's military. They also explained that they closed stores in Israel back in 2003 for business reasons, not political ones. Still, the accusations stuck around. In some places, people began boycotting Starbucks. At the City University of New York, student leaders even voted to stop buying Starbucks products, along with other brands they believed supported Israel. Things got messier when fake QR codes appeared in New York, promising free Starbucks drinks, but actually leading people to graphic anti-Israel content. On top of that, a Starbucks in Melbourne, Australia, was stormed by protesters who spat at workers and stole merchandise while chanting anti-Israel slogans. The company also faced trouble from within. A Starbucks workers' union posted a message supporting Palestine after the October 7th Hamas attack. Starbucks said they didn't agree with the post and ended up suing the union for using the Starbucks logo, claiming it confused the public. With protests, boycotts, and misinformation spreading fast on social media, Starbucks' CEO spoke out, saying the company stands for humanity, not hate or violence. Despite their efforts to clear things up, the controversy hasn't fully gone away, and the company remains stuck in the middle of this heated global debate. While Starbucks denies giving any money to Israel, it has also been said that the company doesn't pay its employees fairly either. 9. Wage gap. On January 24th, 2025, Starbucks CEO Brian Niccol made headlines after receiving a massive $96 million paycheck for just 4 months of work. Meanwhile, most Starbucks baristas were earning less than $15 an hour, which isn't enough to live comfortably in many areas. In fact, reports showed that 63% of Starbucks' hourly workers were paid below this rate. This wage gap pushed more employees to unionize, hoping to secure better pay and working conditions. Over 500 stores voted to unionize, but Starbucks was accused of holding back raises and benefits from these locations in retaliation. The National Labor Relations Board even ruled that Starbucks broke labor laws by doing this and ordered the company to give those workers the same wage increases as non-union stores. While Starbucks claimed they reached equal pay across gender and race in 2018, some reports still showed that black baristas were paid less than their white co-workers. Starbucks CEO made $96 million in 4 months. Isn't it crazy to see that a company like Starbucks would have such a dark past? Now you know what Starbucks has brewed over the years, other than coffee, its lawsuits, boycotts, and who knows? There may be something more horrifying still waiting to be uncovered. Next time you crave a cup of coffee, remember what you've learned today, because sometimes the caffeine that wakes you up in the morning might have something much darker behind it. Let me know what you think in the comments below.